VSM. I am also former chief engineer of the MCD. I have been decorated 4 times by the President of India and at national and international level. I have written more than 184 technical as well as the arbitration paper, including the emergency plan for Delhi state to deal with the engineers during the emergency and the wartime. I may add that today I am talking about at the conference of Indian Construction Week 2020, reviving construction industry in post-COVID world. Online international conference and exhibition, a joint initiative of CIDC and Industrial Corporation. As I said, that I being a construction industry arbitration council as a registrar, I may add that Construction Industry Arbitration Council was inaugurated on 15th November by the President of India in 2016, 15th November. So far, it was started in June 2006, and initially it was with Singapore International Arbitration Council, where we worked together for 5 years. I may add, CIC is the authority which has been approved by the Law Ministry as a noble agent to deal with the construction and arbitration and online work. Senior colleague, chairman and my delegates, I may say that it is my privilege today that I am presenting the paper Make India an International Arbitration Hub. It is everybody says that how to make India. I am going to tell the nature what are the steps which are required. Liberalization, globalization have resulted in rapid growth of business, trade, commerce in India in the last decade. This naturally has led to a demand for more effective and quick disposal of the redressal mechanism. Arbitration is the only alternative to litigation. It does not replace the judicial machinery in all aspects, rather it coexists with it. The object of arbitration is to provide fair and impartial resolution of dispute without causing unnecessary delay and expenses. There are two top forms of arbitration: ad hoc and institutional. An ad hoc arbitration is one which is not administered by any institution. The party will therefore have to determine all aspects of the arbitration themselves, whereas an institutional arbitration is one in which a specialized institution intervenes and takes on the role of administering the arbitration process. Each institution has its own set of rules. In institutional arbitration, choice of the institution is very important and vital. There are a number of cases where the ad hoc arbitration is advocated. The ad hoc arbitrator who are there, who support this ad hoc arbitration, they create some institutional challenges. What are those challenges? They are creating myth against the institutional arbitration. What are that? Certain institutional individual having vested interest or raising certain issues to declare that ad hoc arbitration is most advantageous than the institutional arbitration, which is wrong, I say. The issue raised by such individuals are discussed by me today. Administration fee is higher. This is not correct because dispute of small amount are referred to the sole arbitrator rather than an arbitral tribunal. Besides this, administrative and user facilities charges are not fixed, rather they are correlated with the amount of the claim and counterclaim. Thus, there will be more for the larger dispute amount and less for smaller disputed amount. Second charge which the arbitration or ad hoc arbitrator state is bureaucracy within the institutional cause delay. This is not correct because the institution works on laid down rules and procedure which are approved by its management and covering governing council, which cannot be ignored by anyone except with the prior approval of the governing council of the institution. Parties are required to respond within unrealistic time. That is another charge of the persons who go in favor of the ad hoc arbitration. They say each institution has its own time frame to resolve the dispute referred by the parties. Time frame for responding on various issues are fixed with mutual consent of the parties. So the question of fixing any unrealistic time does not arise at all. Now, I tell you what is the role of the institutional arbitration, how it is superior than the over ad hoc arbitration. The prime advantage of the institutional arbitration is that it provides a tested procedural framework. This framework usually takes the form of a set of procedural rules that will apply to the arbitral procedure by mere reference to the arbitral institution concerned, and a supervisory body ensures that those rules are adhered to during the proceeding. In general, the system adopted by all the administrative and arbitration institutions are more or less, but there are some institutions which have a reputation, which have laid down permanent solution. They don't rely on the ad hoc arbitration. They go strictly according to the rules. What are that? Arbitral panel and quality. Most institutional arbitration have developed a particular reputation, and arbitral institution panel is there on supervising courts. Hence, an award issued by institution command the respect of an enforcing court. I may add that CIC, there are 284 impaneled arbitrators, and they are not taken just as anyone can enter into the CIC. We give them in 3 days training whatsoever the rank they are. They go for no training, though they are very experienced and they know their work, but still we give them the training of the law and also the quality of the arbitrators. Arbitration institutions usually form vast database of arbitrators, provide appropriate arbitrators for resolution of the disputes. You know, the ad hoc arbitrator may be experienced and expert in one line, but here in the institution we have variety of arbitrators with us. In panel, maybe judges, advocates, chartered accountants, and engineers, and also commercial and public sector undertaking. Chairman also they are there. And the panel, which is with the CIC, it is also covered some persons from the foreign country. Cost of arbitration. The institution operates a cost schedule which determines the administrative and arbitrator fee on the basis of the overall value of the claims and counterclaim submitted by the parties. It is not like that. We only depend what is the cost of the claims and the counterclaims, and over that we take the charge fees. Not like that lump sum or not on the basis of hours, which is in general. Some of the institutions are there, they charge also in general and they ask per hours. We are not like that. Further, if the respondent party refuses to pay its share of the advance on cost, the institution rules provide for a default mechanism. And what is that? The institution non-payment of which by the respondent party will provoke the institution to strike out the respondent counterclaims. Not only that, whenever the award is made and the counterclaim is not paid, then we ask that man to make the payment over it. If it is not made, then we proceed with the as the ex parte, and after taking the ex parte decision, and I may add, it is tested. The number of the cases which have been referred, decided by the ex parte in the CIC has been not set aside, but has been honored by the court of law, even up to the Supreme Court. Here, in the institution, the function of the secretary and registrar is to ensure the efficient conduct and functioning of the arbitral institution. Speed of the arbitration. In institutional arbitration, there is a tight timeline for exchange of the parties' pleadings, the main hearing, and the publication of the final award. Even though non-compliance with a given deadline will not be fatal, and the parties are free to agree a more flexible timetable. In CIC, there is a limit that after the pleadings is over, then within 30 days, the arbitrator has to write the award. Defaulting party. In the institutional arbitration, rules especially provide for the continuation of the arbitration proceeding, even where one of the parties defaults during the course of the arbitration. I have said we proceed with the ex parte. Here again, I say in the institutional arbitration, specialized arbitration are there. Certain arbitral institutions are sector specified and have a particular industry specialization, such as marine, mining, oil engineer, etc. Arbitration in each institution has specialized arbitration panel and procedural rules that cater for the specialty of the particular industry they serve. Make India an international institutional arbitration. I have suggested certain. It is laid down as per CIC rules. Most of the parties to the international dispute refer to an international institutional arbitration. The time has come that India should come up as a hub for arbitration. Indian laws, arbitrators, infrastructure are fully competent to tackle the international institutional arbitration. An arbitration clause be incorporated in the tender at the national level so that foreign companies are legally bound for international institutional arbitration in India. India can beat the world in the international institutional arbitration. Let us jam together, and we are hopeful that the day is not far off when India will become an international arbitration. One thing I will add, sometime in the arbitration clause it is written that the arbitration will be in two ways. How? One arbitration is done in India, and if it is contracted not satisfied, it will go to a foreign country. There is one example where in India, when the arbitration was held, it was nil award. And it went to the London Court of Arbitration. You know what happened. Not only nil award, whatever the award was there, as far as the creditor was given along with other damages. The matter came to India for implementation. India refused it. Court refused it. What happened? It was challenged in High Court, double bench, it was also rejected. It was placed before the single bench, Supreme Court, it was rejected. Again it was placed before the review, it was rejected. But again, when it was placed before it, then there was one view of the Supreme Court. And that view was there is a fault in preparation of the contract. That is why India could not do it. There is an arbitration clause which has been accepted by the India contractor in the contract and the department. So India cannot do anything. Hence it is to be paid. I request the man, the member and the engineering faculty and the law faculty, let us not take that job and let us not adopt and allow any agreement where there is two system of arbitration. Thank you. I welcome all this. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jamshid Piru, and I'm a barrister and an arbitrator at 36 Stone, which has offices in London and Singapore. I also practice from Piru Chambers in Mauritius. I would like to thank the organizers for giving me the opportunity to address the very important topic nowadays of virtual hearings in international arbitration. Virtual hearings have been around for several years in international arbitration, and following the current pandemic, their use has greatly increased, and it can now be said that they are becoming the norm in international arbitration. A number of important practical and legal issues must be considered when organizing or participating in the virtual hearing of international arbitration matters. Let us first look at how virtual hearings are organized. Often, it is for the arbitral tribunal itself, sometimes with the assistance of an arbitral institution, to organize a virtual hearing. The tribunal may also ask the claimant or ask both parties jointly to investigate the possibility of organizing such hearings and to provide quotes from relevant service providers to the tribunal. Nowadays, given the extensive use of virtual hearings, I find that tribunals tend to organize the hearings themselves using mainstream video conferencing tools rather than hiring service providers, which were once called upon to organize what I would call quasi virtual hearings, where, for instance, only a witness who could not travel to the physical hearing had to be heard. And by mainstream video conferencing tools, I mean Zoom, Microsoft Teams, BlueJeans, and the like. And of course, breakout rooms can also be organized by the tribunal using these tools, or by simply organizing a separate virtual call between the members of the tribunal for deliberations, and counsel teams can also have their own parallel virtual calls to discuss and prepare, for instance, during breaks. Now, the use of a virtual hearing can raise legal complications where the law of the seat of arbitration does not state that the venue of hearings can be held outside the seat of arbitration, so that all hearings must physically take place within the seat of arbitration. However, this is quite rare, as most leading arbitration seats do afford flexibility as far as the venue is concerned, and the choice of a venue normally ultimately rests with the tribunal after it has consulted the parties. A difficulty arises where parties have, in their arbitration clause, specifically chosen the venue of hearings too. For instance, where the parties have expressly required hearings to be held in New Delhi, will this requirement be satisfied if members of the tribunal are physically located in different countries? Or if the counsel of parties are also in different places? And even if it so happens that all members of the tribunal are in New Delhi, although they are in their respective offices, and so are counsel of the parties, will the condition of venue being in New Delhi satisfied if the virtual hearing tool selected has its servers in a different country? Because technically, that is where the electronic image and sound of the individuals participating in the hearing are actually meeting. because one should not forget that under the New York Convention, a ground for setting aside an award or for refusing to enforce it is that the arbitration was not in accordance with the agreement of the parties. Therefore, this will be an essential consideration for each and every tribunal when faced with an express choice of venue, given that the tribunal generally has a duty to make an enforceable award. And of course, under most leading arbitration rules, the parties also have duties to cooperate with the tribunal, to act efficiently, and so on. But I'm not entirely convinced that such duties can trump an express choice of venue. One can therefore only hope to be able to count on the cooperation of all parties in order for a virtual hearing to be held in such a case. And if the parties do not agree, perhaps it will be more prudent to postpone the hearing until all can safely travel to the chosen venue. Now, with that in mind, let us look at some other aspects of virtual hearings. Virtual hearings will require some adjustments to be made by all professionals involved. For example, the counsel will not really be able to make eye contact with each member of the tribunal. He or she will rather be staring at a screen or at a camera. And counsel will have to be at least as easy to hear, see, and follow as opposing counsel is. This may involve using special lighting and a microphone in the room, and obviously upgrading one's internet connection. And the same will apply to members of the tribunal. Let's not forget the fundamental requirement of a fair hearing. The task is to hold virtual hearings that are appropriate and perhaps sufficiently comparable to a physical hearing, so that one can say that this was indeed a fair hearing. Even if seamless communication is achieved, a respondent could theoretically object as far as the hearing of witnesses is concerned. Indeed, where an arbitration will be determined mostly on documents, the issue of a fair hearing hardly arises. But let's imagine a case where, for instance, fraud is being alleged based on a verbal misrepresentation of a party's office holder at the time of the signature of the contract. The determination of such a case may well turn on whether the tribunal believes that testimony after examination in chief and cross-examination. So one can clearly see how the quality of internet connection, of the quality of the software itself, and of the hardware used can play an important role. In fact, a respondent might object to such important testimony being heard virtually on the basis that the hearing will not be fair. Because judging the truth of testimony is not limited to the words being spoken, but also to the demeanor, expressions, and reactions of the witness. Besides, in such cases, the parties may require that a 360 degrees camera be used in the room in order to make sure that that key witness is not being assisted during cross-examination. I have, in the limited time allocated, tried to discuss a few difficult questions that may arise in virtual hearings, and the answers will obviously depend on each case. And we can expect a few challenges to arbitral awards being brought before the courts, and it remains to be seen what approach to virtual hearings will be adopted by the judiciary in setting aside or enforcement proceedings. On a good note, virtual hearings are more environment friendly because they reduce the need for travel. And virtual hearings are, in fact, also indirectly promoting the use of electronic documents so that arbitration is also becoming paperless. As far as the future is concerned, in my view, virtual hearings have already become mainstream in international arbitration, and one doubts whether they will not continue to form the majority of hearings after this pandemic is over. Sorry. In conclusion, I think one can safely say that legal solutions will swiftly be established by the courts to cater for the few difficulties that may arise with virtual hearings. And until then, whilst there may be no choice but to hold a virtual hearing in most cases, the perhaps most prominent part of the label must still read, use with caution. Thank you very much.
Welcome all to the online session of practicals in the subject of Serving 2. Today, we are going to discuss our first practical, which is study of different parts of an instrument called as theodolite. Theodolite is basically used for measurements, to be more precise, the measurements in angular measurements in horizontal as well as vertical plane. At the end of this practical session, you all will be able to identify the theodolite instrument, identify various parts of the theodolite, and understand the importance of various parts in operating a particular theodolite. This is the instrument theodolite, and here beside this a cross section of the theodolite is shown, which depicts the various parts of the theodolite. Before we see the actual instrument, this instrument comes in a box, which is a fixed box for this type of instrument, which makes the instrument safe to carry from one place to another place. So while opening the instrument, while taking it out from the box, you need to be careful and you need to see the position of the instrument, that how it has been placed. If you could be able to place that instrument in that position, then only the instrument will get fitted into the box and it will not move or it will not disturb any parts of the instrument. So we'll see how this instrument is being placed. She is opening up the box. See the position of the instrument. You could be able to see this telescope. Telescope is attached here, and these 3 foot screws, tri-wedge and tri-back and tri-weight, this has been placed with the foot screws in the upward direction, and the vertical circle of the instrument is on the right hand side. Only in this position only instrument can get fitted into the box. So here we are opening the instrument. Thank you, Sanjay, for opening the instrument from the box. This is our instrument, theodolite, which is a transit theodolite having 20 seconds as discount. Here is our instrument, theodolite. Now we will see the various parts of this theodolite. Very first, if you are looking at the theodolite, see the tri-back and the tri-weight. The bottommost part, these 2 triangular plates are nothing but the tri-back and tri-weight, which are securely fixed with the help of these foot screws. You will be able to see 3 foot screws are attached, 1, 2, and 3. Here, the point need to be noted here, this is nothing but the optical plummet. For centering of the instrument, this optical plummet is provided. From this optical plummet, if you look through, you could be able to see the center of the instrument at ground. At ground, where the center of the instrument is getting bisected, that can be seen from this optical plummet. This is the horizontal circle, which is provided with magnifying glasses at 2 ends, and these 2 ends vernier scales are provided, vernier A and vernier B. On the vernier itself, A and B marking will be there, which will make it easier for you to understand what is which is the vernier A and vernier B. Similarly, these are 2 index frames, which are also called as the A frame. So this horizontal circle is attached with the index frame, and to this index frame, this telescope is attached, is pivoted. Telescope is provided with the focusing screw at one of the side, and exactly to the opposite side, you can see this is vertical circle. Here you can be able to see these screws, arrangement of screws. These are the set of screws Two screws are provided tangential to each other, means perpendicular to each other. Similarly, another set of such two screws you could be able to see here. So these two screws are nothing but upper plate clamping screw and lower plate clamping screw, out of which the one screw is main screw and the tangent to it is called slow motion screw or tangent screw. So upper plate clamping screw and lower plate clamping screw. How to identify again? One which is at the lower level is lower plate clamping screw. Sorry for interruption. So we were talking about the upper plate and lower plate clamping screw. So the one which is at higher level is upper plate clamping screw and its slow motion screw. One set which is at lower level is lower plate clamping screw and its slow motion screw. Here you can clearly notice one of the screw is main screw. This is the main screw and tangential to it is slow motion screw. Similarly at the another end. Then here you can notice this is A frame, index frame to which the telescope is pivoted. Telescope is provided with this eyepiece and this is an object glass. This is entire is a vertical circle. To the telescope, focusing screw is also provided. The telescope movement can be controlled by telescope clamping screw, which is here. This is main screw and tangential to it is the tangent screw for telescope movement. Apart from that, you could be able to see one bubble tube is provided at the horizontal circle. So just now we have seen various parts of the theodolite. These parts only we'll discuss and see in detail. Starting from bottom, the trivet and tri-batch. The main parts are the trivet and tri-batch. So here we'll see it is a circular plate having central threaded hole for fixing the theodolite on the tripod stand by a wing nut. It is also called the base plate. 3-foot screws are secured to this plate by means of ball and socket arrangement, and upper threaded part passes through the threaded hole in the tri-batch. Here you can see the tri-batch and the trivet. See, this is a trivet and tri-batch. See, there you can clearly identify trivet and tri-batch, and these trivet and tri-batch are secured in position by means of these foot screws. 1, 2, and these 3 foot screws are there. To any of the instrument which we are using in theodolite, which requires the mounting on tripod, one adjustment, compulsory adjustment, which we need to do before we start the practical is that of the leveling. The instruments are being leveled with respect to horizontal plane, and to make a horizontal plane or to make any plane, minimum 3 points are required. That's why in each and every instrument, we could be able to see minimum 3 points so that the instrument can be made parallel to the horizontal plane. That is, instrument can be leveled. Here you can see the optical plummet is fixed at the tri-batch plate only. Different instruments will have different arrangements. We'll see the next parts. The horizontal circle, the upper plate and the lower plate, and vernier A, B, inner spindle and outer spindle. This we have the cross sections again, from which it can be made very clear. Upper plate, lower plate, inner spindles and outer spindles. So spindles, the theodolites consist of 2 spindles. You could be able to see this inner spindle and outer spindle. Inner and outer spindle. The inner axis is solid and conical and the outer spindle is hollow. The 2 spindles are coaxial, having the same axes. See this lower plate clamping screw, here it is shown at lower level. Upper plate clamping screw is shown at the upper level. Here is your vernier A and B attached to the upper plate, and your main horizontal graduated circle is attached to the lower plate. Lower plate is attached to the outer axis and is also known as the scale plate or the horizontal graduated circuit, and it is beveled and the scale is graduated from 0 degrees to 360 degrees. Upper plate contains the vernier scale A and B. It is attached to the inner axis. Its motion is controlled by the upper clamping screw and the upper tangent screw, that is slow motion screw. When the clamp screw is tightened, the vernier scale are fixed with the inner axis, and for fine adjustments of the scale, the tangent screw is rotated. Here it is important to note that unless otherwise you are making the main screw tight, the slow motion screw cannot be worked. So for any adjustments with the upper clamping screw or lower clamping screw, whenever you want to make the final adjustment, the final adjustments has to be made by means of slow motion screw or tangent screw, which ensures that both the screws are in tight position for next operation. This is very, very important to note. Next one is the telescope. All of you have seen. This is the telescope. Similar to our level. This entire is a telescope. It is pivoted between the standards at right angles to the horizontal axis. It can be rotated about its horizontal axis in a vertical plane. Similarly, about its vertical axis in a horizontal plane. And the telescope is provided with a focusing screw, clamping screw, and tangent screw. So this is nothing but entire telescope. You can see. This is eyepiece. All of you are familiar already. You have seen the level. And this is object glass. This is that focusing screw. This is telescope clamping screw, and tangential to it is telescope slow motion screw. Vertical circle. See, another part of the telescope is provided, another side is provided with a vertical circle for measurement of vertical angle. It is graduated from 0 to 360 degree. At 2 ends, vernier C and D will be provided. Like in horizontal circle, we have vernier A and B. So in vertical circle, vernier C and D will be provided, and its graduation will be there from 0 to 90 degree in both the sides. means in angle of elevation also and in angle of depression also, it will be 0 to 90 degrees. And at 0 degrees, the verniers are attached. Here you can see in the cross section, this is the vertical axis of the instrument. Vertical axis. Then horizontal axis is there, passing from the telescope where it is pivoted. This is the vertical circle. This is horizontal circle. And this is telescope, axis of telescope. And if you continue this is will nothing but the line of collimation. When you look through this eyepiece at the objective, you could be able to see crosshairs like this. So the position of the crosshairs can be anything depending on the type of instrument and the manufacturer. Here the important point to note is whatever you are bisecting is intersection of the horizontal and vertical crosshair. Intersection of horizontal and vertical crosshair. So this is the point of interest where you are bisecting this point. Okay. So your bisection should be such and sharp that exactly the intersection of horizontal and vertical crosshair, your point should get bisected. So these we have seen the various parts of the theodolite. We are again seeing our instrument and we'll try to identify various parts. Rivet and tri-batch along with foot screws. Set of screws, that is upper plate and lower plate clamping screws. Vernier, horizontal plate means this is vernier A and vernier B. This is the optical plummet. Index frame or A frame. Focusing screw of the telescope. This is telescope itself. Then vertical circle, telescope clamping screw and telescope flow motion screw. So these are the various parts of the theodolite. In the next session, we are going to see how to take up the readings on vernier scale, vernier A, B, and C, D. Okay, so we'll see in the next session how readings can be taken out on this theodolite.
Welcome all. Welcome to the second section of practical. Today, we are going to talk about temporary adjustment of theodolite. While working with theodolite at each of the instrument station, you need to carry out some temporary adjustments without which you cannot move ahead. So in this session, you will be able to analyze the importance of temporary adjustments, which are nothing but setting up, centering, leveling, and elimination of parallax. Similarly, at the end of this session, you will be able to carry out the temporary adjustments of theodolite. So temporary adjustments as indicated, setting up, centering, leveling, and elimination of parallax. We'll see each of the adjustments. Now setting up means fixing up the instrument, approximately leveling, and approximately centering. When we are fixing up the instrument, it will start with removing of the instrument from the instrument station, and at the end of the practical, you have to again keep the instrument in the same instrument box. So we'll first see how the instrument is being placed in the box. This is our instrument box. We could be able to see we are opening the instrument box, and at the same time, we will observe that how the instrument is placed. See the instrument, how it is being placed. This telescope object glass is at the edge, whereas the eyepiece is in the middle. The vertical circle of the instrument is along right hand side. So in this position only, you could be able to again place the instrument. That's why this position is very, very important. Similarly, you can see this one of the foot screws has come up and another 2 foot screws are there down in the box. So same position you have to set up the instrument when you are placing the instrument back into the box, then it will get fitted. Once the instrument is removed from the box, very first thing is you have to set it up on the tripod stand. So to set up the instrument on the tripod stand, the instrument is provided with a wing nut at the trivet. So here we are going to see here, this is a wing nut provided. And in the stand, a bolt is provided which will get exactly fitted into the wing nut. This wing bolt which is provided with the tripod stand can be moved freely. It is provided with a ball and socket arrangement. So once the instrument is placed, this wing nut has to be tightened. We'll see how we are placing the instrument. So this wing nut can be moved. So accordingly, we are fixing up the instrument and we are making the instrument tight. It has been firmly fixed. Now, whatever the center point or the instrument station point is there, over the station point, we will spread this tripod legs and set up the instrument. Now this, as you can see in the video, this tripod legs can be moved either in clockwise direction or it can be moved in anti-clockwise direction. But the care has to be taken that only one tripod leg should be moved at one time and other 2 legs will be fixed. Similarly, these tripod legs can be moved inward or it can be moved outward. The basic thing which we need to achieve is that the instrument center shall exactly coincide with the center which is marked on the ground. On the ground, generally, we are marking the center by means of a circle and a cross. And similarly, approximately, the instrument should be leveled also so that the instrument axis should not be inclined. See, we are doing the showing it can be moved inward, outward, or in clockwise or anti-clockwise direction, so that this inclination of the instrument, if we see the inclination, this inclination should be within the reach of the foot screws. Then and then only you could be able to level the instrument and center the instrument exactly. So this approximate centering and leveling is being carried out by means of the tripod stand itself. Next, we'll move on to the exact centering. Now for exact centering, we are making use of optical plummet. Here we are making use of optical plummet. So after setting up, next operation is centering, which can be done by either plumb bob. You can suspend a plumb bob from the instrument, whatever the bolt was provided to the tripod stand. There is an arrangement for attaching the plumb bob, or it can be done by means of an optical plummet, which is provided in the instrument itself. We will see the working of optical plummet. Here you could be able to see the optical plummet, which is being used for centering. So whatever the center which is marked on the ground is there, you need to observe that center from this optical plummet. So this is nothing but a small telescope provided with the instrument, which will show the center of the instrument. When we see this through optical plummet, we could be able to see the crosshairs which are marked on the diaphragm. So these are the crosshairs marked on the diaphragm. Also, you could be able to see whatever is there on the ground. So on the ground, if you are marking your station point, instrument station by means of this, you could be able to see the ground point. So in this case, you need to make sure that whatever your crosshairs are there, those crosshairs and the point mark should exactly get coincide with each other. Then it can be said that the instrument is exactly centered. For that, you can lose the wing nut which is provided with the instrument for minor adjustments, or you can move the tripod stand either inward, outward, or it can be moved clockwise and anti-clockwise. The care has to be taken that while doing the perfect centering, the leveling should not get disturbed. That is more important because next operation is our leveling. After exact centering, our next operation is leveling, and for leveling, we are supposed to use the bubble tube and 3 foot screws. So how we are going to use this bubble tube and 3 foot screws, that we will see in the video. So the instrument is exactly centered. Now in the leveling operation, you can see you need to select any pair of foot screws and you need to operate these both foot screws either inward or outward. So while doing so, very first you have to select the bubble tube and make this bubble tube parallel to any 2 foot screws. Now here you can see this is a bubble tube. So this bubble tube you will make parallel to any of these 2 foot screws. Once the bubble tube is made parallel, see this is a bubble tube which is parallel to these 2 foot screws. You need to operate both these foot screws. So both these foot screws has to be operated at a time either inward or outward, and see the movement of the bubble. The bubble should come in the center of its run. You can see these are the center line margins. So bubble should be exactly in the center. Once the bubble is in the center, make this bubble tube perpendicular to these 2 foot screws. Means very first we have seen that bubble tube was horizontal and parallel to these 2 foot screws. So let us consider this as a bubble tube. So bubble has come in the center of its run. Now make this bubble tube perpendicular to these 2 foot screws and operate 3rd foot screw independently. See here we are made the bubble tube perpendicular to and operating the 3rd foot screw, perpendicular to previously 2 selected foot screws, and now check the position of the bubble. The bubble is coming in the center of its run. So this bubble should be there in the center of its run. So operate it till the time the bubble comes in the center. Once the bubble is in the center, make the bubble tube again parallel to previously selected 2 foot screws and check whether the bubble is in the center of its run or not. If not, do the fine adjustment. Again make it perpendicular. Check whether the bubble is in the center. You have to repeat this procedure till the time the bubble remains in the center for any position of the instrument. So rotate the instrument and check whether the bubble is in the center or not. Once the bubble is in the center, the leveling operation is completed. After the leveling operation, the next is elimination of parallax. Very first, you need to understand what is parallax. Apparent movement of the image which is formed on the object glass because of the errors in the optical instrument. When you are moving your eye up and down, the image also supposed to be moved. You are getting a sensation, you could be able to see that image is also moving because you are moving eye up and down. And in such conditions, if you are taking up the reading, there are acute chances that the reading and the bisection will be wrong, and it will keep on changing when you are moving your eye up and down. So parallax has to be removed, and this parallax can be removed in 2 steps. Very first is the focusing of eyepiece. You can see here the eyepiece is there. So you need to operate the eyepiece. This eyepiece will get operated first so that the crosshairs which are there on the diaphragm should be clearly visible. And secondly, this object glass. Now to operate the object glass, you have here a focusing screw. So this focusing screw will get operated, this focusing screw. So very first, focusing of eyepiece. When you are focusing the eyepiece, you could be able to see the crosshairs, and these crosshairs, if you are able to see, operate it till the time the crosshairs are distinct. Distinct means clearly visible, like this. Once the crosshairs are visible, then you need to move for the focusing of the object glass. Here, many of the times, if the crosshairs are not visible, you need to direct your telescope towards a bright light and hold a piece of white paper in front of the object glass, and then operate the eyepiece so that crosshairs should become distinct. Once the crosshairs are distinct, you go on operating the focusing screw which is provided in the telescope, focusing of object glass. Direct your telescope towards any of the farthest image, operate the focusing screw and check whether you are getting the clear picture of the image, and at that position you try to move your eye up and down and check whether the image is also moving or not. If not, the parallax is removed. We'll see this operation how we are carrying out. We can see here eyepiece and focusing screw. So very first you have to operate the eyepiece. For that, you are holding a piece of white paper in front of the object glass, but the care has to be taken that this telescope has to be directed towards a bright light. I'm directing the telescope outside the window and holding a piece of white paper in front of the object glass and operating eyepiece. I'm operating only eyepiece. When the eyepiece is being operated, you need to operate it till the time whatever the crosshairs are there, the crosshairs should be clearly visible. The crosshairs should be distinct. When the crosshairs are distinct, then direct your telescope towards any of the farthest object and operate focusing screws. See here the focusing screw is provided which is being operated. Operate the focusing screw till you are able to see the image clearly. Once you are able to see the image clearly, move your eye up and down and check whether the image is moving or not. If not, then again you have to start with focusing of the eyepiece. Okay. So this is how we have seen setting up of the instrument, then centering of the instrument, leveling of the instrument, and elimination of parallax. So at each of the instrument station, you have to carry out these temporary adjustments. Then only the instrument is ready and you could be able to take up the reading. If you have any questions, you can always ring me up or post your comments on the WhatsApp so that I could be able to respond in